Good day, good sirs.
Good evening. How are we?
Excellent.
Very well.
Yeah, absolutely excellent. I had good fun earlier on this week in the 992 C2S with a manual gearbox.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about it. Have they improved that manual gearbox at last?
I tell you what, they have, in a very, very big way. It's taken, what are we talking, 8 years now, but at last it seems that Porsche has actually perfected that 7-speed manual gearbox. Huge improvement over the 991. There is a YouTube video that's coming very soon on that. I'm hoping by the time this pod goes out, it will. Exactly that. Got to do it. Got to plug away. But I'm hoping it'll be out. But
is it a redesign or is it just a variation on the 991 box?
It's the same gearbox made by ZF with some tweaks. So yeah, it's.
So what is it? The feel is better in how you're not selecting the wrong gear.
Yeah, I mean there is still a little bit of that, but I think you're always going to have that on a 7-speed manual, aren't you? There's a lot of rowing to do between 1 and 7, and then back down the gates. Yeah, it's more direct without a shadow of a doubt, more precise. It's a really nice snick through the gate. It's like they're taking all the best bits from the Carrera T's throw. The directness I said on Instagram of the 997 Gen 2 6-speed, that's really nice and direct. It's not notchy like the 991 was. And again, clutch pedals, really, really nice. It's light, but not superficially light. So you're thinking, well, yeah, could you pedal that car as a daily? All of a sudden, it's not an easy decision. Whereas before you would have gone, oh no, I've just PDK. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so
they're equals now. It's just what is your preference rather than going for something because it's better than the other.
Exactly that. And I found out that of the 991 generation, the split between manual and PDK gearbox was 10% to 90% in favour of PDK.
Wow,
that is huge. Absolutely huge. So, with the exception of Carrera T, there were two-thirds of Carrera T's were manual, but that is a huge swing, isn't it, in favour of PDK? Yeah. And I think that's partly because PDK is awesome, but also the manual wasn't quite up to scratch. I'm hoping with the 992 that'll even out a little bit more. Not even out, but just won't be as extreme as 10%, 90%,
Yeah, keep the faith in the manual.
Have you heard if there's going to be a 992 manual, just straight Carrera yet? Or is that a definite no?
I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest. The Porsche is saying that that's due to emissions. I'm not quite buying that. I think they're going to be protecting the integrity of the Carrera T.
Do you reckon they'll run out a 992 Carrera T then with that?
I think so, yeah. I think there might be some tweaks to it, but just the way that kind of it feels already, it's wonderful. And we've said previously on this podcast and elsewhere that if Porsche put a manual stick shift in that Bogo Carrera, they would sell them by the bucket load. So I think in kind of keeping that away, it's forcing everyone to kind of go for the S. And it is a great car. It is obviously £10,000 more. But I think in terms of, long term with the T, I think that's going to protect the integrity and the appeal of it,
Yeah.
So, what about you guys anyway? Any news on the...
The 912 is back home and in the garage.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I've only been in it 10 minutes, but I need to get it out, and even just driving it back was great to get back in the seat. So it needs a wash. It's been sat in the corner of a workshop for 5-6 months.
Yeah.
So it's come back grubby, unfortunately, but no, it's back together, working and upgraded. So it's all good.
Spot on. So is that going to make an appearance for the drive on Sunday?
Yeah, 100%, and it's and the front's even a little bit lower as well.
Oh, good.
So it's
nice.
So ride height is it's been tweaked as well, which is all good. So no, definitely, I think it's all ready to go. So I've got no excuses.
Wicked, absolutely
nice.
Awesome.
Good. Right, what are we doing today then? Who we got on? I'm excited.
Bit of an amazing guest on today, I'd say, don't you think?
I'll tell you what, the story just has blown us all away, hasn't it? For starters, without a doubt, it's the first female guest we've had on Road to Redline, which has been a long time coming, isn't it?
Yeah, where have we been?
Yeah, exactly. So, but we've kind of more than made up for that by bringing what we're hoping listeners at home will agree is the most inspirational story we have yet to have on this podcast. It is exceptional. It involves one woman, a Porsche 356, covering 20,000 miles on 6 races across all 7 continents on planet Earth, isn't it? It doesn't kind of get much more extreme and outrageous and outstanding.
You say that, but soon to go to the Antarctic.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. So what are we going to be finding out in this interview? Then we're going to be finding out what are the rallies that Renée has competed in. It's Renée Brinkerhoff is the driver. She's doing it for a fantastic cause. But Andy, I'm sure you've got written down somewhere the names of these rallies she's competed in.
She's competed on the La Carrera Panamericana 5 times. 2012 through to 2017. Also the Targa Tasmania, which looks an amazing rally. The next one is going to test my pronunciations. It's the Caminos del Inca, which is in Peru. Then she's done the Peking to Paris. Last year was the East African Classic Rally, which I think a lot of Tut-Hill cars also compete in.
Yeah, notable success in those.
Yeah, amazing rally. And then what was meant to be next year, but I think it's now going to be 2022, she's going to Antarctica.
There's a bit of an engineering feat as well, which we get to hear about, isn't there? Because there's snow plows, snow tracks, skis,
crazy
crevasse bumpers, all going on the car, isn't there? So on a 356, which is pretty nuts, I think.
It is, isn't it? The transformations that car has gone through. Poor little 356 keeps getting bits and bobs added onto it to do all sorts of things. Where will it end?
Yeah.
Amazing story.
Yeah, it really is. It's an incredible story. So it's going to be our pleasure to listen to Renée's story. We might as well get her on, shall we?
I think we should also mention, though, I reckon if there's ever been a podcast that you could probably share or listen to with your other half, this has got to be the one.
Yes. Yeah. And I'd say teenage children as well, to inspire them. Yeah,
definitely. So it's a real, it's a bit of a family tearjerker at times, isn't it? So let's get her on. Let's see what she's got to say.
Renée Brinkerhoff, you're a 64-year-old female racer and philanthropist, the first female class winner of the Carrera Panamericana. I think that's correct. You've since gone on to take on this outrageous task, if you like, of racing your Porsche 356 across no less than 7 continents, 6 races. Where does this, and we'll come to the side later on of kind of why you're doing it, but how on earth did you get to the stage where you decided, I want to take a 60-year-old Porsche 356 and essentially race around every continent on planet Earth?
Well, if I step back a little bit in time, my racing was a have to, not a want to. It was something I realized I'd been saying to myself, and that, oh, great, now I got to go do that without any background with cars or anything. And so it was really something I was going to do one time. But the experience of being in the La Carrera Panamericana totally transformed me. And we ended up going back several years. And then it was, what else can we do with this car? It's hard to find events to do with the car anyway, because it's an old car and you're finding events for it's difficult, right? So I was like, what can we do? And I was working with somebody who wanted to race a marathon on every continent. And the light went off and says, my gosh, why don't we do that with the car? Take the car and race it on every continent. So that was the birth of that. That also was happening at the same time that we wanted to grow our philanthropic reach. And so this whole project got developed. But that was the impetus for all of it.
But what actually made you want to race at the beginning? What was the first thing that sort of sparked that in you? Because I believe you're a mother of 4, homeschooled them, maybe not your preferred profession. I think you were looking to become in a surgeon or something like that. What spurred you to decide to go racing in your mid-50s?
Well, okay, so the job of homeschooling 4 kids was a massive undertaking, which I had no idea when I got involved, right? How I thought I would do that for 1 year and, ended up doing it for 20 years. So when that part of my life I'd segued away from kids are in college, etc. I was really enjoying having some free time. I wasn't looking for something to occupy my time I was just enjoying life, right?
Yeah.
And I know it's maybe sounds a little cliche or something, but I was literally in my laundry room folding clothes, and I heard the voice in my head. We all have conversations, right? We have subconscious. Well, this was a conversation I've been having without ever hearing it. And it was the first time I heard it. And it was one day I want to race a car. And literally, I could have said anything. There is no reason why I said car racing. I have no background in cars or anything. So I think it was just something that had to be beyond me, so far out there, like bizarre almost, that kept me. Sometimes you have a rough day. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this. And it was that subconscious thing I was telling myself. So when I heard that, knowing myself, it was, I have to go do this. If you've been saying this for 20 to 30 years to yourself, Renee, what is that? Don't ignore it. For your own self-worth, for your own self-respect, you got to go try it. And that's how it started. And then again, as I said, it just got a life of its own. And here we are. That was in 2012 was the first time I ever got in a car and raced. And now it's 2020.
With the cause, Renée, so you've got a very humbling cause that sits behind all this with the trafficking of children, which is obviously quite something to be working alongside. What came first? Were you involved with the cause already, and then the racing came after, or is that something that you bolted onto the racing later on?
Well, so I started racing in 2012, and it wasn't going to be a one-off, but I became transformed. It was a huge personal metamorphosis. And then through that, though, I saw how my racing was changing other people's lives, and it's primarily women and children. And then we were racing in Mexico, and our family typically is one that we like to donate our time and our money to help other people, right, that aren't as fortunate as we are. So we were doing things in Mexico. And at the same time that we were looking for opportunities for the car and realizing, my God, there's a voice here. We have a voice where there's power in your voice. You can affect change. So how can we grow that? And that's how Project 356 World Rally Tour. And in this time frame, very organically, I got exposed to this whole problem. I sat down next to a young man on a tour bus. He was with his bride-to-be. We just start chatting as you do. And he told me what he did. As a profession, he works for the FBI. He's undercover. He poses as a John, and he looks for people that are making, selling, and using child pornography. And the age group is like 5 to 4 years old and younger, because those children are too young to tell mommy and daddy what's happening to them, right? Yeah. So these are the people he was finding, and he was arresting them, and then he would go and testify in court to convict them. I knew nothing about this. And I was, as you would be, right? You hear that. What does that make you feel? You're just like sick. You're devastated. You're emotionally moved. It grips you. And then you wonder, what can I do? So that happened. And then I got his contact information, and I learned more about it. Was calling him and finding out more and thinking, what can I do? What does this look like? Realized that, yes, this is in the United States, but it's also a global problem. And that child pornography feeds child trafficking. Those people that are seeing these things now want to act on what they're seeing. They want to be participants, right?
Yeah.
And so I was learning about this, and this was all happening simultaneously as we wanted to use our voice with the car and everything as our platform. And then shortly after I met the FBI agent, I was sitting down on a bus going to pick up a rental car, and sat down next to the gentleman, looked over, and he had his phone out, and there was a pornographic image of a very young child. So I'm thinking, okay, Renee, something's knocking on your door.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
The stars are aligning,
right?
As such.
Yeah, this is not a coincidence. What are you going to do about it? So then that's how it all began. And this very, fortuitously, we could say, came together right at the time that we wanted to have our voice for something, and learning about kids being trafficked, and then brought that whole thing together and to decide we're going to take the car in every continent. We're going to message this problem. I'm older, we decided to put the car in places it's never been before. So if we couldn't find an event that was for classic cars, then we did Caminos del Inca, which in the history of that race, I think that race has been going since the 70s. They've never had a classic car. It's always modern, purpose-built cars. we've put our car in there with all those entrants as the only classic car, the only time a Porsche or a 356 had ever been in it. So there we have an audience, right? People are putting a mic in front of you, then you can tell them why you're here, what you're doing. And then when we go to these countries, we give money. We spend months and months. This takes more time to vet the people we give money to than it takes to prepare the car, ship the car, or anything to do with the car, right? And we supported several organizations in Peru that work in the area of child trafficking. And we've done that in many of the countries we've gone to. We try to do it in every country, but it's important to us, not just that we check the box that we've given in the country where we've raced, but that if we can't find the right people that are doing real work, making an impact, aren't wasting the money, that are really helping and making a difference, we don't give money. So that's, in a nutshell. I can't even remember the question now, but that's just a little bit about who we are and what we've been doing.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I mean, it's culminated in this, as I said, outrageous record attempt, if you like, to it's 20,000 miles, isn't it? Complete 20,000 miles in 6 races across 7 continents. And this is what you've called Project 356 or 356. We're delighted from a Porsche perspective, this being a Porsche-centric podcast, we're delighted that you've chosen a good tool for the job. But, why the 356? How did that kind of come around?
Okay, well, again, I didn't know about cars or racing, right? So no, you got to go race. You got to go learn about cars. You got to learn about types of racing, how to train, like everything, right? And my husband had a cousin who had just recently purchased a Porsche 356. I had never seen the car. I'd never heard of this car before. And he said, come over. I want to show you, this car I have. So that's really what it was. I went over there. And this was the time that I was thinking about racing. And now I got to get a car. I saw that car. I thought, that's it. That's the car. I mean, I just fell in love with that car. I mean, how do you not? It's, first of all, for me, it's so nostalgic. It just takes you back in time, right? And I've seen those black and white photos of cars racing and across Europe and in different places. And I thought, man, that is such a cool car. I love the curves. And then when I got in the car and he drove me in the car, it sounded and felt like my souped up VW Bug that I had in high school. So when I was a kid in the 70s and my mom and dad bought me this used VW, but it was beautiful. It was silver, believe it or not. It had little, nice little pinstriping on it. And it sounded and felt so good. And it was that whole visceral, raw experience and it was obviously a manual, 4-speed. And I thought, oh my gosh, this just feels so right. And so I said, okay, that's just the car. I didn't even look any further. That was it. It was the Porsche 356.
It fell into place then, really.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Was that a car that was for sale at the time, or did you just go and claim your husband's cousin's car?
No, his car was the inspiration, and then it was, now I've got to find one. So, and so this cousin had knew about buying used cars, right? He just bought that one. He said he would help me look for one, and he found one on Bring a Trailer, which I don't know if you guys know that website. And I saw that car, and I said, that's my car. I don't know what it is about me, but it's like, as soon as it's something, it's like, that's it. Never sat in the car, never drove the car. So that's the car, right? Well, then of course you go look at and make sure, but it was just, finding it on Bring a Trailer.
And how much did you have to do to the car to prep it? I mean, how far away from a standard car is it? I mean, is it all out the box, or is it completely modified?
So
when I bought the car, it had been restored, but it was a street car. And then when I chose the Carrera Panamericana, then now I had to make a rally car, right? So everything had to be modified in the sense of you have to put a roll cage in, you have to, the proper fuel cell, the fire extinguisher system, race seats. I mean, everything had to come out, change to actually make it a bona fide race car. La Carrera has super high standards for safety. The highest standards for safety. It's extremely dangerous. There's a 30% attrition rate in that race every year. Wow, yeah. So, it was just had to be decked out to be competitive and, fast but durable and safe, primarily really safe. So, a lot of changes went into that car.
Still 356 engine, I guess.
We actually put a 914 Type 4 engine in the car because the class that we participated in allowed it.
Right.
So it's a 2-liter Type 4 engine.
Great. Cool. And gearbox, still the original type gearbox?
Originally, we raced with the 4-speed, but the class allowed us to put a 5-speed in. So in the last couple of years of the race, we put a 5-speed in the car. We did improve the suspension. Again, that was part of the regulations. We were allowed to do that. So we upgraded the rear suspension. The car has disc brakes instead of drum brakes.
Yeah.
And a few things like that. But pretty much it's just, there's not much you can do to those cars. Unless, I guess, you want to, go out to the limits and pay for things, but, small budget and small amount of time. And so we didn't make that many modifications, but definitely approaching the Sport Menor class in the La Carrera Panamericana.
How much seat time did you get in the car before you turned up for your race? I mean, did you just prep the car and turn up, or did you
About an hour.
An hour?
Yeah.
An hour.
About an hour. The car was, again, time and money, right? And I found a car builder here in Colorado who had prepared a car for a Targa Newfoundland. So he knew a little bit about preparing a rally car. And that car also was a 356. So he and I developed that car. It took 2 years to get it all done because he's a busy man. And I didn't, know exactly what to do or how to do it or how much I wanted to do. And but the car was literally put on the trailer the night before we had to leave for Mexico. And really, I think we took it to the track, or we might have run it around the neighborhood. I can't remember, but it was just like, does everything work? Does it work? Yeah, okay, it works. And then off we went. So really, I told my team even that my driving school would be the race. I had no opportunity to learn to drive or drive that car. And it was in that race, the baptism of fire, that I began to learn how to drive a 356.
Because it's not, they're not, if you're used to driving a more modern car, then they're not an easy car just to jump in and drive. That's quite something just to turn up and start racing one.
Yeah. But, if you think about it now, I'm correlating the two. I drove around in high school with a VW Bug, the engine's in the back, right? I know it's different, but it's not too unlike each other. And, though I hadn't driven a car like that since those years, right? Because I got married in college, had children right away. And so what are you driving, a van or a SUV, right? Carpools. So it was definitely a challenge. But you know what? That's what I loved about that car. And I love about that car is I believe it takes a lot of the driver to come to the seat, to drive in that car, right? It's all rear weighted, and everything you put in it, you get out. You put the wrong thing in, that's what you get. You put the right thing in, you get immediate feedback. And I love the fact that it takes skill to drive and that it's a challenge. And I find I found out about myself, I like challenges. And that's one of them, right? Driving that car. So it's perfect. Who wants the nanny features in a car? I don't,
Absolutely.
You want that car talking to you? You want it to... telling you everything you're doing wrong. And, no, you want to go find out by experience and get the thrill of getting it right, and then get the slap down for doing it wrong. So it's a great car to drive.
Renee, I just want to kind of talk about the Carrera Panamericana generally, because as I'm sure you're aware, Porsche has quite a big history with that race. Dominating when it started entering the competition in 1953, and Hans Hermann in his 550 Spider winning in 1954. I think he won his class, and six of the top seven cars outright were Porsches. Porsche then in 1989 made the made the Panamericana concept car for Ferry Porsche. So there's this real history between Stuttgart and this famous Mexican race. Officially in its original form was stopped in 1954. Like, how fearsome today is that race to enter,
Well, yeah, as I think I mentioned earlier, it has a 30% attrition rate.
Yeah.
The first morning of the first day that I'd ever been in a race car it was in that race, someone died. That's how the morning started. Two brothers in a car rolled out in a field. The one brother died. 2 days later, the 5-6 cars are off a cliff, like 40, 50 feet going down.
Did you nearly run for the hills and think, oh, this isn't for me? Or were you set?
It didn't bother. It didn't. It's like those kinds of things. I don't know. I have this way of compartmentalizing, and that kind of skill set I use when I go into brothels looking for children being trafficked. Is there a way to get in a bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And car caught on fire. That same, the same race. 7-day race. Cars are catching on fire. People being medevaced out. People are dying. There were 2 deaths that year. That really was my first entrance into that race. And the next year I went and prepared my own car and went back and all. But it takes people ask me, who do you respect, Renee? Who is someone you look up to? And it always comes to my mind immediately. There's a man that I met and he still races it. And Doug's probably in his mid to late 70s. His name is Doug Mockett. He drives a 1950 something Oldsmobile, and he almost every year places in the top 5 cars, and he's running against young men who are, full of vim and vigor and guts, and he's in their 30s, and he's giving them a run for their money. And it takes a lot of guts to go do that race, or foolishness. I don't know which, but you have to, that's something I always go through prior to racing that race, is the whole fear factor. Thinking about it in advance. Are you willing to take that risk? Knowing what that risk is, making that decision, putting it in the box and saying, done that, we've decided that, now you go and you put your foot down on the pedal. So it is, anybody that does that race, I don't care if they do it for fun or they do it to try to win. It is an extreme event. And there's no other event that I've found like it that's on tarmac in the whole world that's currently being run. It's phenomenal.
Do you think that event is your favorite out of all of those ones that you've done?
That's the race that gives me the chills still. Let's just say that. I've had all my close calls in that race. And a lot of that's because we've been able to be competitive. We prepared our car for that event. Other events, my car has been maybe the only classic car, or the only time it's had a 356. So we went into those events knowing we couldn't be competitive, but it was more about raising awareness and having a presence there and trying to be competitive, but knowing the odds were against us.
Yeah.
I loved Peru. Again, we were the only old car, the only classic car in the event. We were racing up to 16,000 feet in elevation. The landscape is phenomenal. The people that run that event, that are racing that event, I have huge respect for them. Half of it's on tarmac, half of it's gravel. Those guys have to be amazing drivers because you're changing surfaces all the time. And it's, again, like the La Carrera, there are no guardrails. There are no, it's way remote. Forget about getting medical services to you quickly if you have any problems.
Yeah.
And those guys go flat out, and they're amazing, and their spirit, and then how supportive they were of us and their enthusiasm for what we were doing. And then the people that would literally come out of the mountains, you would hear them yelling, and they say Porsche. That's how they say Porsche. Now, how do these people that live in villages that probably don't have televisions, how do they know there's a Porsche in the event, right? That they're waiting on the side of the road for us, that they're yelling Porsche as we're coming down these dirt roads out in the middle of nowhere. You don't see villages, you see nothing.
Amazing.
But the Andes, that's all you see.
Yeah.
And that kind of enthusiasm, is just phenomenal. I would say that's been like some of our best memories.
What was it like driving in a rally surrounded by world rally cars? That must have been just craziness.
Oh gosh, wow. I'll tell you what, it was so funny because they had a panel before the race, and all the competitive people that they thought would win or had won before were on this panel, and they invited us to join because we were the only foreigners, people from out of the country, participating in their historic event. And it was all in Spanish, and I didn't know what was being said. And there was another woman driver that year, and she had just got done saying in Spanish, which I didn't understand because I don't speak Spanish, that don't laugh at her. They're just here to have fun. And she was driving with in a truck, and the man who was with her would drive when she didn't have to drive, or they would trade off, right? But she's a star. She's a public figure, right?
Yeah.
And it was anyway. So I got on, I said, we're here to win. We're here to be competitive. I've got this amazing team. I've got this amazing car. You know, it's like, I would never have said that if I'd known what she had just said before me. But the car really started off until we realized we went through 2 engines in that car.
Wow.
Come to find out there were 2 gloves in that car, mechanics gloves, that were totally blocking the air intake. So you can understand what that was about. But the first day that we raced and we came in, they were cheering us. The local people that were supporting us, they was like, whoa, you are here to race. Wow, look at your times, you know? So I think, you know, forget the fact that it's an old car. If you can have a great interaction with the navigator, right? And you've got that right, your car is prepared well. I think I really want to go back there without the gloves in the engine and see how well can we do, you know, because we were surprising ourselves and we were surprising them. And it was fun to be against those modern cars and not being a modern car, you know?
Yeah.
And especially that great little car. Who doesn't fall in love with the 356? It always puts a smile on your face, right, when you see it.
Amazing.
You touched on navigators there. Do you always have the same navigator, or have you got a little panel of people that help you out with that?
So for the La Carrera Panamericana, I had the same navigator every year, Roberto Mendoza. And he actually agreed to get in the car with me the first year without ever having raced before. And if we did well, he said, you know, I could pay him. Otherwise, all he wanted was a race suit. And I mean, it was a brave man to get in the car with me. And we won our class that year. So our first year out in our debut, he and I won our class. And we went back the next year. We got second in our class, but we placed in the top 14 of about 75 or 80 some cars. And we're beating 911s. We're beating Corvettes. We're beating Mustangs. All these things, you know, and again, that navigator is so crucial, right? It's that teamwork in that car. So I had Roberto for all those races. When we had our accident in 2015, part of the problem that I saw was we didn't speak the same language as our first language. It wasn't our native language. Mm-hmm. Mine is English and his is Spanish. There were things he was saying to me when I was about to hit those people in front of me after
in panic
not going off the cliff. And what he said in English meant something different. And so I thought, this is really important. If you get in this situation, if you can be understanding each other, split second thing, right? The language was important. Otherwise, I would have continued with Roberto. And so I went on to get a different navigator for Targa Tasmania. And I've had 2 or 3 different navigators. And then a year ago, I had one of my daughters actually join me in the car in East Africa as my navigator. It was her first time ever to be in the race car with me, any race car, and ever to navigate. And
I would think that would be quite brave to do that with one of your family.
Absolutely. You know, all my family's been supportive, and my children, and especially my daughters, like they've been the most enthusiastic, and they wanted to get into motorsports. And I remember when I would run the La Carrera, and I'd be thinking, you know, gosh, wouldn't it be awesome to be in the car? Could I do this with one of my children? Could I do it with one of my daughters? And all immediately that mother thing comes, no, how can you risk your children? You can't do this with your kids, right? But when it came, you know, after doing the Peking to Paris, I realized I really wanted a woman in the car with me. I've had amazing experiences with men in the car, and I've had not so good experiences. And it's a matter of me being the boss and having the final say, and that not always going over so well.
Yeah.
And I'm all about the team, right? You got to have a team, and you've got to have teamwork. But someone's got to make that decision. And if it's not a safety thing, if it's more of a thing of strategy or something, you know. Even so, I decided I wanted a woman in the car, and my daughter was available, and I thought, you know, let's do this together. And so because the car couldn't be competitive, really, you've probably seen the videos of that race. The 911s are going flat out. My 356 was breaking down every other day. It couldn't take the bumps. It couldn't take all the jarring, right? And so we weren't
pretty
able
severe, isn't it?
Oh gosh. And my body took a month to start feeling like a whole person
definitely.
again. It hurt so badly. And you can imagine how the car felt. So we really couldn't go flat out and be at risk, right? Our risk factor was way toned down. So it really was the perfect event for me to do as a debut with one of my children. The La Carrera, I would never would do that with one of my daughters, I don't think, or any of my kids. It's one thing to make decisions for yourself, that you might come home or not come home, or how you might come home in a lame or whatever. But for your kids, you just maybe I'll change my mind, but at this point, I can't ever foresee doing that.
Yeah. Talking of family, what do your family, what does your husband think about this? Obviously very supportive, but.
So when I first mentioned that I wanted to race a car, he thought, he didn't even really hear me. Just kept the conversation kept going. and then I said it several times, several different days and things. And it's no, he thought I meant cars and coffee because he'd heard about cars and coffee. Right. And I said, no, I don't mean cars and coffee. I mean, really race a car. So when he finally realized that's what I wanted to do, he's okay.
Yeah.
And he's from the get-go, he does not like the danger.
Yeah.
He does not like the potential of all of that, right? He's gone down every year to the La Carrera. My family's all gone down for at least the last 3 or 4 days. They've seen the accidents. They've seen the risk. And so he's why are you doing this? Are you sure you want to do this? And when he hears me say yes, and why, it's okay. So, okay. And my sons have been less enthusiastic. My husband and sons have been less enthusiastic than my daughters.
Yeah.
They're always, they're protectors, right? You guys are protectors, right? And, but they see the amazing things that have taken place because of that racing.
Absolutely,
in my life and in those around and in the people's lives, when they see, 20 women waiting for us at the end of a day, hugging and kissing us and thanking us and crying for racing as women, to be here as a woman. And they see the impact that has. They say, if you want to do this, they're there to support.
Yeah.
So, they've been amazing. And I couldn't do any of this without my family's support. It's, I call my husband sometimes at 2 a.m. I'm in the La Carrera and I'm scared out of my mind because I can't sleep, because I know those sections the next day are really, really, they're dangerous. And I know that when we go as fast as we can at any given moment. We're always pushing that envelope, right?
Yeah.
I wake up praying. And so I'll call my husband sometimes and he goes, Renee, you can do it. You can do it. I know you can do it. So that encouragement has been immensely important to me. Absolutely. To have his love and his support.
Amazing support.
Touching on that, Renee. So I think you mentioned it was the Peking to Paris rally that was the toughest on the car itself.
I would say East Africa absolutely was the toughest on the car. Okay. Yeah, that East African safari.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to talk about the East African safari separately in a minute. But so East African safari was the toughest on the car. But which of these outrageous rallies would you say was toughest on you personally?
I think it depends if it's mental or if it's physical. Mm-hmm. East Africa, literally, my body was I felt like I was 20 years older. It hurt so much.
Yeah.
Every day, all day, you're slamming it with hammers. Mentally, it depends on if I'm facing fear, right? And then if it's a problem with the interpersonal things, that weighs on you differently, right?
Yeah.
36 days in a car with somebody. That's a long time. You got to be on the same page, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they've all presented different challenges and of different kinds, and each one causes you to dig someplace deeper in you, in a different place, to get what you need, to get up and do it, and to do it well. Because if you're going to do it well or go home, right?
Yeah. And
so they've all been stretching in different ways, and they've required growth in different ways. And that's another thing why I love it so much, right? It's not stagnant. It forces you, especially if you're trying to be competitive or you put yourself in situations that are just over the top, like some of these events you put that car in. It just makes you come to the table. It makes you bring so much of yourself. And that makes you feel alive, doesn't it? And yes, it's so awesome. I mean, this whole racing thing, it's been amazing.
I've over the last few days, I've been sort of carrying out some research, on your story, and I found it absolutely inspiring. Really sort of like, Jesus, need to get on and do some stuff. And, pretty amazing. I really sort of commend you on that. It's inspiring for not only the people that you're trying to support, but for just people that hear the story of getting out there and doing something that's sort of out of your remit, or out of your what you would think would be normal.
Definitely doesn't come across very normal, right? Yeah. Oh gosh. But if you don't, I just feel like in life, if you're not stretching yourself, if you're not growing, if you're not having that own thing within yourself and your soul and your spirit, then what are you? You're half dead,
Yeah.
And then and what about the people around you? What are you giving them? What's coming out of you for them?
Mm-hmm.
And, we live our lives, one time. And I want to be able to say, job well done, job well done. If I could say that'd be awesome.
I think you're well on the way, Renee, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think you're well
absolutely
on the way to that. Of the 20,000 miles then of Project 356's world tour, there's 356 miles to go. I think that's correct, on Antarctica. As we said earlier on in the conversation, it was meant to happen this December, around now, wasn't it? Obviously cancelled due to COVID. It will not happen in 2021. I mean, what mechanical changes has that car got to go through in order to tackle that terrain? And I assume it is Richard Tuthill helping out with that, because we've seen that the car is being prepped in the UK. So
Richard helped me for all the races once we started the Project 356.
Okay.
But for this event, and Richard and his team is there for kind of engineering consultation in this project. But the individual that is actually preparing the car is Kieran Bradley. And my co-driver will be Jason de Carteret. They both live in the UK. Okay. They have both the world record twice for driving to the South Pole. And so I wish I was an engineer. I just got off the phone yesterday with Kieran. He's done 10 iterations for the front skis. 10. 10.
Wow.
He's made one. It's not right. And now we're on the second set. I mean, it's an absolute, people think, it's like a snowmobile. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
There are so many problems. They think, it's like, driving in snow in Sweden. No, it's not. Antarctica poses ice conditions, weather conditions, temperature conditions, unlike any place. I mean, you go to the poles. It's so unique. When Jason and I were on the phone for the first time, and he's going to be that navigator for me, he's led over 50 expeditions at the poles. Jason has, on cross-country skiing and all different kinds of things. He's trained special forces in the UK and other agencies how to be at the poles, how to survive, and all these things. So I've got the right man there. And Kieran prepared their truck for their 2 trips to the South Pole. But I was just learning yesterday, one of the big challenges he's having is you have a car that was built in the 50s with metals from the 50s.
Yeah.
But to withstand the temperatures of Antarctica, you can't use those metals. They're too brittle, or all the different problems with those metals. And you can't put new metal on old metal. So any modifications he does, he has to attach them to like the interior of the car where we have the roll cage or something that's modern metallurgy or whatever, so that it's same on same. If you put the new metals on the old metals, what is going to happen there? The stresses of all that, right? So he's told me these stories of car manufacturers that go down to Antarctica and they're going to debut their new car, and they go down there and they literally drive 5 minutes and the car's broken. So there are so many things that have to be done to the car that I wish I could explain to you. that are just magnificent. I mean, also he was saying, your skis, you want to be on top of the snow. Just like if you're wanting to walk through really deep snow, you would put snowshoes on, right? Because you want to be on the surface.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're digging in every single footstep, right? So you have to propel yourself on top of this. And there's all different kinds of snow. Just like the Inuit language, there's 20 or 30 words to describe every different type of snow, different types of, whatever that is, right? So we gotta keep the snow, because the winds come up and the snow comes in like sand inside the car. We don't have a heater in the car. There's no heating system that will keep us warm. So forget that. We have to strip off as much weight as we can. Yet we have to support the car and build up the car to hold the tracks, to hold the skis. So we have to do, structural things underneath the car. You can't bury the car in the front end. You can't bury the car in the back end, right? So, I mean, there's so many engineering marvels that he's having to go through and then COVID has presented him all sorts of challenges. There was something with a component that because people are working out of their homes, that they're not tested, and like the grading that you would do and the testing you would do, before shipping it out, it's not done. So he put these two things together. They didn't mesh right, these two parts together, and they melted together basically as you were tightening them. So he had to spend 3 days to drill it out, to separate them, just to get two small components apart because they weren't right. 3 days. So, I mean, I wish, I wish I could give you more information, but it's going to be the most dangerous. Jason interviewed me. I thought I was interviewing him. Out of the gate, he said, he's taken people down to Antarctica to do expeditions. They've gotten down there. They've looked at the situation. They've said, I want to go home. When can I get out of here? Right. So he said, Renee, are you going to go down there and want to go home? Right? So, or if the going gets tough, are you going to want to, get me out of here? So anyway, after learning a little bit more about me, we realized we were suited for each other in this event. But, the extreme temperatures, the whiteouts, the weather, the problems with the car. I mean, it's a massive undertaking. It just sounds like, you're going to go down there and drive 356 miles. What's the big deal? But And then in addition to that, we're going to try to set a land speed record on the runway down there. It's the runway cargo planes come in on. So the other challenging thing of all this is not only are they building skis and tracks for the car, but they have to be quickly removed so that we can put tires on to do the land speed record. So, and then he was telling us yesterday, Renee, how are you going to, I didn't think of this. He goes, we got to be able to take the tracks and the skis off. So how are you going to do that? So he's bought these inflatable balloon things to put underneath the car because you can't jack it up.
Yeah.
To put under the car, to lift the car so we can even change it to put tires on. So there's so many aspects to all this that are just, it's a marvel. It's going to be an engineering marvel. And Kieran is so excited about it. He loves challenges. So I'm very privileged to be able to do this with those two guys.
Absolutely.
What's the geography and the logistics look like for that trip? Where does the car go to and from, and where do you start? And what does it look like before you actually get all the way to the actual pole?
The car will go on a cargo ship in a container. It will be shipped to Chile. I'm trying to think of the port. It's very, very southern part of Chile near Tierra del Fuego. From there, it will go on a Russian cargo plane, and it will be flown with supplies to the interior of Antarctica. And we will be camping on the ice. So in my little car, we have to have 2 tents because each of us have to be sustainable for each, self-sustained, right? I have my own cooking stoves and food and tent and gear, and he has his, and all that has to go in the car.
Why does it have to be independent?
Because let's say he gets sick.
Okay.
I don't know, just we're in a big snowstorm. We can't find each other.
Okay.
Something happens, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is they told me is Kieran was telling me, he said when they were doing one of their South Pole treks, he said Renee, I stepped out of the truck. I thought I was on solid ground, and I went down into a crevasse.
Wow.
And I quickly, scrambled my way out. He goes, "You're going to want to tether yourself to the car when you get out of the car."
Yeah.
And the other thing is we have a big crevasse bar on the front of the car. So
yeah, what does that look like?
It's just a big U.
Okay.
It's a massive U-shaped structure. We'll have the solar panels on it. It'll have solar panels that will catch the sun from above and the reflection from beneath.
Okay.
And we will use that as sort of our source for electricity, the battery. And so it has a massive crevasse bar in the front so that if you go into a crevasse, obviously from the front, it catches you.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And, we'll just be making our little dried food our little tent, and, trying to keep warm. And
how are you going to keep warm in the car? You said that you've obviously got no heating.
Just whatever you're wearing. Just wearing the right
clothing.
Clothes, and don't get wet.
Yeah.
Don't get wet.
Yeah.
What about the car from an engine point of view? Have they talked you through how it's going to work at those sorts of temperatures? Because obviously, a carburetted 50-year-old engine isn't particularly designed for minus. I don't know what the temperatures are going to be up there. Is it minus whatever it is?
I think it can be up to minus 30 or 40. I'm not sure exactly. It's where the Fahrenheit and the centigrade converge. It's that negative temperature. They've not said there will be any problem with the car as far as the engine goes. It's more about, the suspension and the integrity of the metal.
Okay.
Cracks. Not finding, hopefully if you find a crevasse, it's in front of you, not behind you. Because it give way beneath you, It's more of an engineering of just locomoting the car forward. And also he said it's the gearing is going to be a very big thing, because he said when you go toward the pole, which we're not going to the South Pole, but we'll be in that region. He said it's like dragging a semi-truck uphill to gather the momentum in that snow. He said that it's huge, the energy output, and you guys will have to interview Jason and Karen and all this stuff.
We'd love to.
But,
absolutely love to.
It's absolutely amazing what they're doing.
Where and how are you going to test all of this? Is there a plan for that?
There is a plan. I'm really another really great thing that I realized yesterday talking to Kieran when I learned about the 10th iteration of the ski was the car wouldn't have been ready.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, or if it had gone there, it wouldn't be as hopefully successful.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was asking him about testing. You can test in sand, but it's not recommended because of the damage it'll do on the car and the tracks and everything. And he said, Renee, really? He goes, testing on grass is a really good thing, because any problems you have on grass will be accentuated. So in other words, any problems you'll have on ice will be accentuated on grass.
Yeah.
So it's bizarre, but he said, this is what they have found. And I have this little great video of him running the car around with just the tracks on the grass, right? But he said and we had a camera person go because he wanted to see up close what was happening with the tracks, so he could know how to adjust those tracks. And the testing will be on grass. If we get the opportunity, if COVID permits, we hope to go north and do it in some northern regions of a Scandinavian country and test it there. But if not, thinks that we'll be okay if we just do grass testing. So there you go.
Okay. Plenty of wet grass in England.
I'd load to it, yeah.
Maybe you'll get some snow.
Renee, we'll keep our listeners on Road to Redline fully updated with what you're going to be doing prep-wise over the next year, but then also when you actually tackle Antarctica next year for real. What's next for you and for the 356 once Project 356 has come to an end?
Yeah, you can't stop, really, can you?
Oh, gosh. I've got this fantastic idea. And I'm not going to tell you all of it because it hasn't fully been developed yet, but I want to do more things with this car and put it into challenges that it's never had before. And I want to have a team of women mechanics, co-driver, driver, and maybe do 2 or 3 cars. And again, do something that's never been done before. It's again all about raising that awareness. And also, I just also wanted to tell you, because I know this crosses people's minds and they don't always ask me, the Valkyrie Racing and Valkyrie Gives are 100% different. Valkyrie Gives has no overhead. There are no salaries paid.
Yeah.
Every dollar that goes in is a dollar that goes out. Valkyrie Racing is funded totally separate. It's its own thing. We use Valkyrie Racing as our platform to get aware, to be able to talk about awareness, to, get in front of people, right? But the Valkyrie Gives us 100% separate. So again, we want to be able to continue, messaging this global travesty of kids being trafficked, and to do things that haven't been done before. And I'd like to do that with this car, if at all possible. And if not, I have another car in mind that's dear to my heart. And with women, because there's been a real inspiration for women to do things. And yes, guys are also inspired, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But when those little girls come up to you, like I had a 12-year-old come up to me in Kenya, and she said, "I'm telling my daddy I can do this too."
Wonderful.
Or just them thinking outside the box. Or I've always wanted to do this, and now I can go try that. So, how can you not keep doing that, right? To inspire those people to do things beyond themselves, or that other people say they can't do, right?
Just to touch on your cause for a second, because obviously that is a big part of it, and I'm hoping that some of the guys that obviously listening on the pod will help out with some of that. Obviously, along the lines of your amazing bravery, you touched on where you get really involved with the project, and I believe you've actually done some undercover work yourself in some of these quite remote countries. Can you just give us a quick insight into that?
Right. So I actually went through a vetting process, and to work for an organization that supports local law enforcement in foreign countries. And a lot of the times, the people that buy children are foreigners. That's not always the case, because in many of these countries, there's a lot of nationals that do this as well, right? But you can go in as a foreigner, and they can't go in themselves. They can't go in without a warrant, right? So I went through like 3 different psychological tests, the same kind of battery they use for law enforcement here at the FBI in the United States. And then I went through that, and I passed. So I didn't think I would pass, and then I passed, and I thought, okay, now I'm going to go see if I can do this. It's one thing to want to do it, just like, I want to go racing, but can you do it, right? Or it's going to be too much for you, right? So I went for my first time last January. We were slated to go 3 more times, or two or three more times this year, but because of COVID travel restrictions, we weren't able to go anymore. But we're all geared up for 2021, and I did my first investigative work in January. So I was a part of a team of 2 other men, and we have our aliases. My name was Sarah, and we have our story of why we're there, and we spent 4 or 5 hours every night for about 10 days going into brothels and go-go bars and places looking for kids. And we have hidden cameras I had in my bag. Everyone has their own device, and you have a phone also that you can use that has a background camera that doesn't show up as being a camera being used on your phone. And I was able to get evidence, and we did find minors. Oh God, how do you talk about that? It's what do you call it? Deplorable, disgusting, heinous, dark. The girls have numbers on them, and they're there for different reasons. Some are there because their family has a debt. They borrowed money and they can't pay it back.
Yeah.
Some girls go for a job thinking they're going to have one kind of job, but it's another kind of job. I mean, there's so many different stories for all that, right? Some are I mean, it's just all different types of stories, and the stories are the same the world over. And for me, it was the hardest part is to not hate the people in there, I would say, you know?
Yeah.
You look at those people and you know how dark their souls are, and you can't show on your face anything. You have to look like you're having a fun time.
Yeah.
That you're partying and this is all great, right? And sometimes you just walk through and you just look at everybody, and sometimes there's upstairs and downstairs. And a lot of times the young girls are in the corners or they're hiding behind the older girls. And, or you sit there and you don't have to drink alcohol. They don't care what you're buying. And you just sit there and you talk to them. I got video of them saying how much this girl was. She was probably 16. I'm there sort of as a friend of these guys, right? And I'm also sort of put everybody at ease. It was really interesting. I thought, how does this work as a woman in this place? And there are women that are in there with their boyfriends or whatever, but 99% of that is men. And it puts the mama-san or the papa-san, because of the place I was, that's the proprietor, right, at ease. They think, oh, why is this woman here? They must, they just feel, you're laughing. They just feel comfortable, right? And then the girls felt comfortable and at ease because I was a woman and I'm not there to prey on them. I'm just hanging out, And so you hear their stories. You find out how old they are. You find out why they're there. They let down their guard. They put aside their smiling face, and you start to see the pain, the fear. The girls that we found, one had been there only a couple of weeks. Another had been there maybe 30 days or something. It's, I don't know, you ask me questions, I'll tell you more. I don't know what to say. It's amazing. I had them look in my bag as you're going through, checking to see if I have cameras, plastered everywhere is no camera. And for me, I have the best memories of sitting. There's a couple of girls I just think about almost every day, sitting with them, holding their hands, telling them they're lovely, and just giving them self-worth, giving them a hug that wasn't a nasty hug, but giving them a true hug of love, being some light in their dark.
Yeah.
Being a vacation, knowing that they're not, if you can keep buying enough drinks, they have to pay a debt no matter what they're in there for, and they can't keep up with it. And there's no way that they can make any money, to get out of where they are.
Yeah.
And every day they get in a deeper hole. So if you can, I don't know, we got the evidence we needed. We gave it to the police. And the police, they knew there were problems in these areas, and that's why we went where we do it. So we work with local nationals, and those local nationals do all the underground work, all the preparatory work for us to say, we need you to go in here, we need you to get this footage. We need you to get this angle. So the lighting's important so you can see the youth of their face.
Yeah.
You can see their bodies are underdeveloped. You can see they need that information so they can go in and make an arrest. They can't go in there without a warrant. They can't get a warrant without evidence, right? And then if people want to do this as a job and they're adults, that's their choice, right? But if they're there because their passport is taken, or they can't get home because they can't pay for it, or they were tricked into being there, or whatever their story is, right? And it's illegal for kids. So really, I don't care if a kid thinks they want to do it or not. How can a child make that decision?
Yeah.
And every girl I met, they never wanted to be there. What girl grows up saying, I want to do this for my job? Right? I dream of being a whore one day and having eye me every night, right? So, I just think for me, I wanted to be, for myself, to be there to, I call boots on the ground. We have three things: our time, our money, our resources, and I want to give all three. And if I have the talent, let's say, because I passed the vetting and I can go do that and I can help, I'll go do that. If I can raise money, I'll give them money. If it's this, whatever that is, to give all that we have to do something right? For that. It's $150 billion industry.
Yeah.
You know, there are millions and millions of children being trafficked.
Renée, your story is properly inspirational. I have to say, it's got to be the most inspirational person we've ever had the privilege of having on Road to Redline. And we said at the top of the conversation, we'd be delighted to donate 1 month of our Patreon earnings that are given to us by our listeners to your fantastic cause. We're going to top that up as well. For those of us listening at home who would also like to donate, what is the page, please, that they could go to?
Wow, you can go to our website. So it's we actually have 2 websites, Valkyrie Racing, and it links to donating there, or you can go directly to Valkyrie Gives. So it's VALKYRIE. And you guys, I'm going to tell my story of why it's Valkyrie. Can I tell you my story?
Yes, please. Yes.
All right. So as you may know, Valkyries are from Norse mythology, and they're women warriors who go to the battlefield to rescue the wounded and the dying that are worthy. And they take them back to Valhalla and they restore life. And we thought, God, could we just be modern day Valkyries, right? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Perfect.
So it's just how that came together. Another one of those things, right? But so that's Valkyries. And so we're Valkyrie Racing and Valkyrie Gives. And yes, we love racing and we're hardcore at doing all that stuff. But the heart behind all that is to do something for these children.
Yeah.
And any help, every dollar counts. Every dollar helps, right? If we can give those kids a lifeline. And it's amazing. What's so beautiful is there's these, so then you're in these places, right? And they're hiding their bodies and they're hiding behind their hair and they're crossing their arms over their little breasts. And they are so shy and they're so awkward and you can see all how uncomfortable they are. But inside that is this spirit, this resilient spirit. And if you get them away from that, if you give them a new chance, give them a lifeline and they will rebound. It's amazing, that human spirit. And you see it over and over and over again. No life is lost until it's in the grave. And to give them a chance.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Who'd believe that, what was it, how many years ago? 8 years ago, that you were stood in a laundry room and it would culminate in all of this. It's just outrageous, isn't it?
Amazing. I think I just am living a movie in a way. You know, I pinch myself. Is this really happening?
Yeah.
Talking to these guys in Peru today, funding their operations, you know, to go in and arrest people and it's just, I feel so honored, right? I'm the one getting blessed in all this. So.
Yeah. The question that I had was, you know, what have you gained personally from all of the rallies that you've done? Obviously it's gone on to become this great fundraising effort, but has it improved your self-confidence? You're inspiring everybody. What's it done for you as a woman in her 50s and now in her 60s? You know, what
Well, I have changed. My children look, and they didn't know who I was. My husband didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
You know, I married young and put on that hat. I put aside going for that professional career. I put on that hat of mom and teacher, and I did that with a passion. And in the process, you know, my life, I did that. I purposed it. I put it over to the side.
Yeah.
It was fine. That was my decision. And I don't regret that at all. But my own personal development stopped. Mm-hmm. I developed everybody else, their talents, their dreams, their goals. They're all those things for them, right? And it was like picking up from that and starting from that age and then growing. You know, that's where I was at that age. And I had very little self-confidence of anything, of my appearance, of my talents. Even though I was very successful at homeschooling, our kids all went to great colleges with scholarships. I was a little bit I was definitely an introvert, and and stunted, I guess you could say. I was very, very socially stunted, and in every way, you know. So this forced me to grow. It was like it happened almost overnight. In 1 week in the La Carrera, you face every emotion, You face every kind of challenge. You learn everything about yourself that's beautiful, everything about yourself that's ugly. You learn about other people. The life experiences in 1 week of doing that race, you get them all. Yeah. You can get them, almost all of them, in 1 week of that. Shaking uncontrollably at the steering wheel. Well, how do you do that? You're at the start, they're doing a countdown, and your body is uncontrollably shaking from the toes to your whole body. How do you do that? And pushing through and staying going and overcoming that fear day after day after day. And finding all those challenges of everything. I mean, I'm so thankful I had that one-liner. It's been massive. It's been massive. And then doing all these things, there's a continual growth, right? So, I'm so glad I had that epiphany, of hearing that voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. Well, Renée, as I say, you're, I think, without a doubt, the most inspirational person we've had on Road to Redline 2 series in now. So we're really, really grateful of your time tonight. And as we said earlier on in the conversation, we'd be delighted to update our listeners throughout next year, and of course into the back end when you take on Antarctica, just how well you do. And we're really rooting for you,
Oh gosh, thanks. That's awesome. I have to make an apology. I love this so much. I feel so much for it. I tend to talk too much. So
absolutely not.
You ask one question and you get
it's great.
You get much more than you ask for.
No, it's great. It's exactly what the medium of a podcast is all about. It's giving these people a platform to tell their story, and yours is absolutely worthy of it on both fronts. The 356 front, of course, and what you're doing around the world, but also that fantastic cause. So, Renée, thank you very much indeed for coming on Road to Redline this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, Joe, and Lee. Thank you so much, you guys. I want to come back anytime.
Oh, wonderful.
I'll hold you to that.
I'd love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys.
Nice one. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care. All the best.
So, guys, I don't think there's much we can really say about that. I mean, what an incredibly humbling story, and what an effort over what's quite a long period of time. So, guys, I think the plan isn't it, for this month that we're going to donate all of our Patreon money, and what we're also going to do between the three of us, we're going to match it, aren't we? So whatever's signed up between now and the end of December, we're going to match it like for like. So if anybody's on the fence or fancy supporting us or supporting an amazing cause, then I think now's a brilliant time to sign up for Patreon.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dust your wallet off.
Dust it, indeed.
Yes, a brilliant story and an amazing cause. So that was this week. And then next week coming up, we have got another double header of awesomeness. We've got a Christmas giveaway for general listeners. And then we have also got a very special gift giveaway that we're giving to our Patreon members. Is that right?
That's correct.
Is indeed. Patreon exclusive it is.
Yeah.
Oof,
so again, get your Patreon membership sorted quick, pronto. Now, quick.
Exactly that. It pays quite literally to get on board with Patreon. As we said all along, we're very keen to look after our Patreon members. This is a community pod, and that is very much part of it. So that is all part of next week's Road to Redline.
I'll tell you the other thing we forgot. There's also just about enough time to get your entries in to win a set of tyres.
Yeah. Oh yes, Fred Steins.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Fred Steins. So I think next week we're going to pick the ballot, aren't we? So it is.
Yeah, I think
get your entries in quick.
I think maybe Tuesday night we'll do an Instagram live and pick the winner out of the hat on Tuesday.
So should we say what is cut off going to be? Sort of midday Tuesday or something?
Yeah, let's do midday Tuesday cut off, and come and join us. What should we say? Should we do a 9 p.m. Instagram live?
Yeah, something like that should work, shouldn't it?
Yeah. Great shout. So 9 p.m. on Instagram to see who's going to win a lovely set of Fred Steins for their vehicle.
Fred Steins.
Yes, very much looking forward to it.
And if anyone's missed it, obviously it's a set. It's any set of tyres across their entire range for any vehicle in any size. They've been very open with that and said you can have whatever you like for whatever you like, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, so long as they're backing around.
I've got my 18-wheeler parked out the front.
Yeah, quality. All right, gents, nice one. That's another fantastic episode. Always a pleasure to share some airtime with you both, and very much hope that people have enjoyed listening to that this evening. That's spot on.
Catch you soon.
Cheers.